We're joined now by a candidate for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. He is former Vice President Mike Pence. Appreciate you joining us today, sir.
Clay Travis, Buck Sexton, thanks for having me on, guys. It's an honor to be back.
Thanks for being with us.
So we are pleased to have you, and I got to begin with the question. Yeah. I said, and you may have heard it when Ron DeSantis was on us right after he announced. I said I think you need to consider announcing that you will pardon Donald Trump in the event he is charged. President Trump has now been charged. Yeah, but even, yes, convicted. But if you are president in January of 2025, I think you would agree this is a political prosecution. Why am I wrong to think that it is important for whoever the Republican president is, in the event that it is not Trump, to pardon him? And why would you not want to pardon him?
Well, first off, let me take a step back. But I'm going to answer your question. Yesterday was a sad day for this country. I mean, the very specter of a former president of the United States in the dock in a court indicted. It's nothing I thought I'd ever live to see in this country, and I think that millions of Americans were downhearted about what we saw. But in this country, first principles is what you guys talk about all the time. No one's above the law. And every one of us is entitled to the presumption of innocent until proven guilty, right? So that's where we start. And former President Trump's entitled to the presumption of innocence. Now, I have read the indictment. I would tell you all, as someone that spent years on the International Relations Committee, I had the highest level of clearance when I was your vice president. These are serious charges. I mean, the handling of classified information bears upon our national security, the safety of our armed forces. And I will just say to you, as I've said in other places, I can't defend what has been alleged. But the former president is entitled to his day in court. And frankly, after 7 years of politicization at the Department of Justice that I lived through, okay, I was in that campaign in 2016 when the head of the FBI said that he was not going to bring charges against Hillary Clinton for much the same facts that have now resulted in an indictment against Donald Trump. I was there in the White House during 2.5 years of the Russia hoax. I saw the big media, big tech, collude to essentially suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. All the things you guys have, covered with great distinction. But so it's hard for me to believe that politics did not play a role here. And it's one of the reasons why last week I called on the Attorney General Merrick Garland to come before the American people and talk about the reasons for this decision, to answer questions about the basis of it, because the American people have lost confidence in the Department of Justice. And what I will tell you is that should I have the great privilege of being president of the United States, we're going to restore confidence in the Department of Justice. We're going to clean house in all the senior offices. We're going to put men and women of unimpeachable integrity in those positions, and we're going to restore the confidence of the American people in equal treatment under the law.
As part of that, Vice President Pence, can I ask you, would you consider the appointment of a special counsel to look into what seems to be now increasingly obvious and brazen corruption affecting the Bidens?
Guys, why would we wait for that? I'm demanding it now. I demanded it on national television this morning. Look, I want to see the Department of Justice bring equal vigor to the investigation into the allegations concerning President Biden, concerning members of his family. I'd like to see them bring equal vigor to the investigation into President Biden's handling of classified documents. I mean, some of these documents date back decades, not just to when he was vice president, but when he was a member of the United States Senate. That's what I want to see. Equal treatment under the law is that everybody gets the same treatment. I'm going to continue to call on that. But the Lady Justice is blind, and we ought to be able to demand as Americans that the law be upheld, but that it be evenly and equally applied to everyone. And I will tell you, maybe I have I got two members of my immediate family that serve in the armed forces of the United States. My son's a captain in the Marine Corps. My son-in-law is a lieutenant in the Navy. And I will never diminish the importance of protecting our nation's secrets. But all that being said, as I said, having lived through all these years of politicization, I promise you, if I have the opportunity to be president of the United States, we're going to clean house, give the American people a fresh start, and restore confidence in the rule of law.
So Vice President Pence, this is the most basic question, but I think in a lot of ways it would be the most important one for you, which is you served under President Trump. Why are you running? Why do you think you would do a better job, or what would you be doing differently as a matter of policy from what a lot of the listeners feel like was a overall very successful first 4 years of Trump?
Well, look, I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I know there are some candidates in this Republican primary who have taken to criticizing our record, but I stand by it shoulder to shoulder every single day, other than the difficult time that we had at the end that I spoke about in my announcement speech last week, where I stood on the Constitution of the United States. Every single day I was there as we worked to rebuild our military, revived our economy, we cut taxes, rolled back regulations, achieved energy independence, we secured our border, and we appointed 3 of the justices to the Supreme Court of the United States that gave America a new beginning for life. I'm proud of that record. But I'm running because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I mean, frankly, in 2.5 years, President Joe Biden and the Democrats have weakened America at home and abroad. And I think those of us that have the experience, which my experience ranges not just from being vice president, but I was governor of the state of Indiana, where we balanced budgets, we doubled an educational choice program, we stood for life and liberty, and also I was a leading House conservative for 12 years. I battled against the big spenders in my own party. That was when I first came into contact with the late and great Rush Limbaugh. He saw me as a backbencher that was fighting against big government republicanism back in the day. And I would tell you, I just think those of us that have the experience and those of us that have the proven commitment to the conservative agenda that's carried us not just to Republican victories, but to great victories for the American people over the last 50 years, have an obligation to step forward. And that's why my wife and I, after a great deal of prayer and deliberations, announced our intention to seek the Republican nomination for President of the United States. And any one of your listeners all over the country that would like to know more or even help us out, go to MikePence2024.com.
All right, we're talking to former Vice President Mike Pence, running for president as the Republican contender here in the primary. And I want to circle back to the first question there, because I don't think you directly answered it. So let's presume you're fortunate enough to take oath of office January 2025. You become the next president of the United States. Donald Trump is convicted of what I think you would agree are clearly, to a large degree, political-based charges. He is facing time in prison. Maybe they even put handcuffs on him and walk him into a prison. Would you pardon him from those federal charges?
Well, first off, these are serious charges. And as I said, I can't defend what's been alleged, but the president does deserve to make his defense. And I would say to each one of you, look, I've been a former governor. I've actually granted pardons to people. And I take the pardon authority very seriously. It's an enormously important power of someone in an executive position. And I just think it's premature to have any conversation about that right now, guys. I really
Why would you? But hold on. Let me just ask you that, because I think as a matter of principle, if you believe, as both Buck and I do, that Donald Trump is being prosecuted to a large extent for political-based reasons, something that has never happened in the 240-plus year history of the United States, that we are setting an awful precedent here. And I think it's important to look at this even before the case has taken place. You've read the indictment. You know what the allegations are. They are serious. Right. But to me, what is gained by allowing Donald Trump to be put in prison in the event he was convicted is we lose infinitely more by not just taking a principled stand and saying, as a matter of principle, this shouldn't happen. I'm not going to allow it. To me, if you're the executive, you are the ultimate decider. With all due respect, when you aren't telling us what your decision would be, I think you're dodging the question and frankly not stepping up on the front of leadership, which in the past you've been willing to do. So to me, not answering is a no.
Well, look, number one, I don't think you know what the president's defense is, do you? I mean, what are the facts? I mean, look, we either believe in our judicial process in this country or we don't. We either stand by the rule of law, we don't. I just what I would tell you is, I think, as someone who has
what I'm hearing is you're fine with Donald Trump being put in prison, sir, and that to me, since you were his vice president, feels pretty disrespectful.
I had a standard rule. I don't talk about hypotheticals. Look, we don't know what the president's defense here is. I think he's entitled to make his defense, entitled to have his day in court. And look, let's take it one step at a time. But I would just tell you that
but if you know that these are political charges, and you do, this is not a difficult decision.
Clay, I think we've gotten what we're going to get here in terms of an answer to this one.
I think any conclusion by anyone running for the presidency of the United States that would prejudge the facts in this case, or prejudge the investigation into President Biden or his family, is premature. Let's let the process play out. Let's follow the facts, and I promise you, as President of the United States, I'll do just that.
What would you do differently from either Trump or any of the other Republicans running, sir? Where do you differentiate yourself? I mean, because to me, if you feel like the 4 years under Trump were so great, well, then why run yourself if the guy who was at the top of the ticket is running again? You know what I mean? I mean, honestly, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, you know, I joined the Republican Party when Ronald Reagan was in the White House. You guys were probably in grade school at the time. Ran for office the first time when he was actually in his last year in office. I joined the Reagan Revolution. I'm someone that believes that in a strong national defense and American leadership in the world. I think we are the leader of the free world, the arsenal of democracy. And when I hear the former president and others, frankly, in this race that are minimizing America's leading role in the world and talking about pulling back or can't decide who should win after Russia's unconscionable invasion into Ukraine, I push back on that. I think we have an obligation to provide the soldiers of Ukraine with the resources they need to go and win that fight and repel the Russian invasion. I also think that's the best way to send a message to the Chinese that would diminish their military ambition. Secondly, look, we are facing a debt crisis in this country, the likes of which we have never seen. We have a national debt the size of our nation's economy for the first time since World War II, and it's about to increase by a factor of 5 times if we're not willing to engage the American public and bring principled and compassionate reforms to the entitlements that are driving 3/4 of our national debt. Now, Joe Biden's policy is insolvency. But frankly, Donald Trump's policy is the same as Joe Biden's. Neither one of them are even willing to talk about the national debt, talk about bringing common sense reforms to Social Security and Medicare. I have been, will continue to. Finally, look, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. I'm incredibly proud that our administration appointed 3 of the justices that sent Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history where it belongs. We've got this new era of life before us, and yet I hear my former running mate talking about some pro-life measures being too harsh, suggesting that overturning Roe v. Wade cost us elections in the midterm elections, and I see other candidates beginning to shy away from the right to life. Look, I believe the cause of life is the calling of our time, and I'm going to continue to stand strong with states around the country that are advancing protections to the unborn. As President of the United States, I'll support efforts to protect the sanctity of life at the federal level as well.
Former Vice President Mike Pence running for president. Appreciate the time, sir.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me on Clay and Buck.